sound of Hitsville. How Motown Records shaped every black kid in the 1960s and 70s, there was a sound that came through every radio, every record player, every jukebox in Black America during the 1960s and 1970s. It was polished but soulful, sophisticated but accessible, undeniably black but embraced by the whole world. When that sound came on, you stopped what you were doing. Your foot started tapping before your brain even registered the song. Your body began to move because it could not help itself. That sound was Motown, and if you grew up black in America during those decades, Motown was not just music, it was the soundtrack of your entire childhood. Before we dive into these memories, if you're new here, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another trip down memory lane. And as you watch, drop a comment below sharing your favorite Motown memories. We love hearing your stories, and they make this community so special. Motown Records was more than a record label. It was a cultural institution, a hit-making machine, a symbol of black excellence and entrepreneurship that proved to the world what black creativity could achieve. From a small house in Detroit with a sign reading Hitsville, USA, Berry Gordy built an empire that would define American popular music for decades. And for the black children who grew up listening to that music, Motown shaped their understanding of love, of style, of possibility, of what they themselves might become. This is the story of Motown and its impact on black childhood. The story of the artists we idolized, the songs we memorized, and the dreams that took root in our hearts every time we heard that unmistakable sound. The story of Motown begins with Berry Gordy Jr., a former auto worker and aspiring songwriter who had a vision of creating hit records using assembly line efficiency. In 1959, with an $800 loan from his family, Gordy founded Motown Records in Detroit, Michigan, Motortown, hence the name. He purchased a small house on West Grand Boulevard and converted it into a recording studio, office, and creative headquarters. The sign out front announced Hitsville, USA, a declaration of ambition that would prove prophetic. Gordy's genius was not just musical, it was organizational. He created a system for producing hit records that was remarkably consistent. The songwriting team of Holland Dozier Holland crafted song after song with hooks that lodged in your brain and never left. The Funk Brothers, the house band that played on almost every Motown recording, provided musical backing of extraordinary quality. An in-house finishing school taught artists how to walk, talk, dress, and present themselves to mainstream audiences. Every element was controlled, refined, optimized for maximum impact. The result was a sound that was instantly recognizable. The Motown sound featured prominent bass lines, distinctive drum patterns, call and response vocals, tambourines shaking on the offbeat, and orchestral arrangements that added sophistication without sacrificing soul. It was black music designed to cross over, to appeal to white audiences without losing its essential character. And it worked. Motown Records climbed both the R&B charts and the pop charts, proving that black music could achieve mainstream success without compromising its identity. For black children growing up in the 1960s, Motown artists were not distant celebrities, but almost like family members. Their faces appeared on album covers displayed in living rooms. Their voices came through the radio during breakfast, during dinner, during the slow weekend afternoons when the whole family was home. Their names were spoken with familiarity and affection, as if they were cousins who had made good and made everyone proud. The Supremes were the queens of Motown, and Diana Ross was the brightest star among them. For black girls, Diana Ross was everything: beautiful, glamorous, successful, and undeniably black. In an era when mainstream beauty standards rarely acknowledged black beauty at all, she wore gowns and wigs and makeup that transformed her into a figure of fantasy, yet she remained recognizably one of us. Girls studied her movements, imitated her gestures, dreamed of growing up to be just like her. Stop in the Name of Love came with choreography that every child learned. The hand held out in the stop gesture, the dramatic pauses, the synchronized movements of the three Supremes. These were imitated in living rooms and bedrooms, and anywhere a mirror allowed for practice. Baby Love, Come See About Me, Where Did Our Love Go? Each hit gave children new lyrics to memorize, new melodies to sing, new dreams to dream. The Temptations represented male elegance and harmony at its finest. Five men in matching suits moving in synchronized choreography, their voices blending in harmonies that seemed to come from heaven itself. For black boys, the Temptations were a model of how to be smooth, how to be stylish, how to work together while still standing out as individuals. David Ruffin's raw lead vocals, Eddie Kendricks's sweet falsetto, the precision of their movements, everything about the Temptations suggested that black men could be refined, sophisticated, and irresistibly cool. My Girl was perhaps the most beloved Temptation song, a declaration of devotion that children learned to sing before they understood what romantic love even meant. The opening bass line, the building arrangement, the warmth of the vocals, it was a perfect pop song that also taught listeners how to express affection. Boys sang it to imaginary girlfriends, girls imagined boys singing it to them. The song became a cultural touchstone, referenced and covered for decades after its release. Ain't Too Proud to Beg, Get Ready, Just My Imagination. The Temptations hits kept coming, each one reinforcing their status as Motown royalty. Children watched them on television variety shows, marveling at their choreography and trying to copy the steps. The Temptations made it look effortless, but children who tried to imitate them discovered how much skill and practice those smooth moves actually required. The Jackson 5 burst onto the scene at the end of the 1960s and immediately captured the hearts of black children everywhere. Here were young people, children and teenagers, not adults, achieving Motown stardom. Michael Jackson was just 11 years old when I Want You Back hit #1, and his talent was so obvious, so extraordinary that it seemed almost unfair. The Jackson 5 showed black children that they did not have to wait until adulthood to achieve their dreams. For children watching the Jackson 5 perform, identification was immediate and powerful. These were not distant adults living glamorous lives. These were kids, brothers, a family. Michael's energy, his dancing, his voice that seemed too powerful for his small body, all of it was inspiring and relatable. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Michael became household names, their faces appearing on posters and lunchboxes, their music playing constantly. ABC, The Love You Save, I'll Be There. The Jackson 5 hits were everywhere in the early 1970s. Children danced to them at birthday parties, sang them on the way to school, performed them in talent shows. Trying to do the Michael Jackson spin was a rite of passage, most attempts ending in dizziness and laughter, but occasionally producing a moment of actual grace. The Jackson 5 cartoon show on Saturday mornings made them even more central to childhood, animated versions of the brothers having adventures between musical performances. Stevie Wonder was a different kind of Motown star, one whose genius transcended category. He had been a child prodigy himself, signed to Motown at age 11 and nicknamed Little Stevie Wonder. By the late 1960s and into the 1970s, he had matured into an artist of extraordinary range and depth. His blindness made him unique among pop stars, but it was his talent, his ability to play multiple instruments, to write songs of remarkable sophistication, to sing with both power and tenderness that made him legendary. For black children, Stevie Wonder was proof that disability did not mean limitation. Here was a man who could not see yet, who created music that helped others see the world differently. His joy was infectious. Listening to Stevie Wonder made you happy, made you want to move, made you feel that life was good despite its challenges. Superstition, with its funky clavinet riff and irresistible groove, got everyone dancing. You Are the Sunshine of My Life was a love song that transcended romance to become a general expression of joy and gratitude. Stevie Wonder also showed black children what artistic growth looked like. Unlike artists who repeated the same formula, Stevie kept evolving, pushing boundaries, taking risks. His albums from the 1970s, Music of My Mind, Talking Book, Inner Visions, Songs in the Key of Life, were not just collections of singles, but artistic statements. Children who grew up with Stevie learned that you could keep growing, keep learning, keep surprising yourself and others. Marvin Gaye occupied his own unique space in the Motown universe. His early hits, How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You, Ain't That Peculiar, were classic Motown pop, smooth and accessible. But in 1971, he released What's Going On, an album that changed everything. Here was Motown music addressing social issues, war, poverty, environmental destruction, with sophistication and soul. For black children approaching adolescence, Marvin Gaye provided a bridge between the pop music of childhood and the more conscious music of emerging adulthood. What's Going On was an unusual hit, a song that asked questions rather than provided answers, that expressed concern about the state of the world rather than celebrating love or dancing. For children who had grown up during the civil rights movement, during Vietnam War protests, during urban uprisings, the song resonated with experiences they were only beginning to understand. Marvin Gaye showed that pop music could be about more than romance, that it could engage with the world and try to change it. His later hits, Let's Get It On, Sexual Healing, belonged more to adolescence and adulthood than to childhood. But for those who had grown up with his earlier music, Marvin Gaye remained a familiar presence, an artist whose evolution mirrored their own journey from childhood innocence to adult complexity. His voice, smooth and aching, stayed with listeners throughout their lives. The women of Motown provided role models of black female achievement that were rare in 1960s and 1970s America. Beyond the Supremes, there was Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, whose Dancing in the Street became an anthem for both celebration and resistance. Gladys Knight and the Pips delivered I Heard It Through the Grapevine, and later Midnight Train to Georgia, with emotional intensity that moved listeners to tears. The Marvelettes, the first Motown girl group to have a #1 hit with Lee's Mr. Postman, showed that young black women could achieve pop stardom. For black girls growing up in these decades, these women represented possibility. They were beautiful on their own terms, talented beyond question, successful in an industry that was not designed to support them. They wore their hair in elaborate styles, their dresses sparkled under stage lights, their voices commanded attention and respect. A black girl watching the Supremes on Ed Sullivan could imagine herself up there, could believe that such achievement was possible for someone who looked like her. The style and fashion of Motown women influenced how black girls presented themselves. The matching outfits of the girl groups, the elegant gowns of Diana Ross, the sophisticated presentation that Berry Gordy insisted upon. All of this communicated that black women could be glamorous, polished, and aspirational. Girls begged their mothers for dresses like the ones they saw on album covers, tried to style their hair in imitation of their idols, practiced the poise and grace that Motown women displayed. The Motown sound became the backdrop for daily life in black households. The radio was often on, tuned to stations that played Motown alongside other soul and R&B hits. Record players spun Motown albums during weekend cleaning, during dinner preparation, during the long summer afternoons when there was nothing to do but listen to music and dream. The songs became associated with specific memories. This song was playing when we drove to Grandma's house. This song reminds me of the summer we moved to the new apartment. Dancing to Motown was a family affair. Parents who had come of age in the early 1960s taught their children the steps they had learned, the twist, the mashed potato, the monkey. Children developed their own moves, influenced by what they saw on television and what their peers were doing. Living rooms became dance floors when Motown came on the radio, parents and children moving together, the music bridging generations. The records themselves were treasured possessions. Albums were stored carefully, handled by the edges to avoid fingerprints, cleaned before playing. The album art was studied, the liner notes read, every detail absorbed. Building a Motown collection was a project that spanned years, each new album a prized edition. The stacks of records in black households told stories of taste, of memory, of the moments when particular songs had mattered most. Motown songs provided the soundtrack for the rituals of growing up. School dances featured Motown hits. The gym transformed into a romantic space where My Girl or Ain't No Mountain High Enough played while nervous teenagers tried to work up the courage to dance together. Birthday parties pulsed with the energy of Dancing in the Street or ABC, children moving with joyful abandon. Family gatherings always included a point where the Motown records came out and the adults started dancing, children watching and learning, and eventually joining in. First crushes were often experienced through Motown songs. You heard I'll Be There and thought of someone specific. You sang along with Stop, In the Name of Love, and processed feelings you did not yet fully understand. The love songs of Motown taught children the vocabulary of romance before they had experienced it firsthand. By the time they were old enough to fall in love, they already had a language for what they were feeling, learned from years of absorbing Motown lyrics. The breakups and heartaches of adolescence also had their Motown soundtrack. I Heard It Through the Grapevine expressed betrayal and suspicion. Ain't Too Proud to Beg offered a model of vulnerability and persistence. The emotional range of Motown music covered the full spectrum of romantic experience, from first infatuation to mature love to bitter disappointment. Growing up with this music meant having emotional templates ready when real life caught up. The impact of Motown extended beyond music to lessons about success and excellence. Berry Gordy had built something from almost nothing, a black-owned business that competed with and often beat the major labels. The artists had risen from poverty and obscurity to become international stars. The whole enterprise demonstrated that black people could achieve at the highest levels in entertainment and business. That excellence was possible regardless of where you started. For black children absorbing these lessons, Motown was evidence against every racist message society sent. You were told that black people could not succeed, but here was Motown proving otherwise. You were told that black culture was inferior, but here was Motown producing music that the whole world wanted to hear. You were told that black businesses could not compete, but here was Motown thriving. The existence of Motown was itself an argument, a counterexample to every limiting belief. The professionalism that Motown demanded of its artists became a model for how to succeed. The finishing school that taught artists how to present themselves, the choreography that required endless practice, the quality control that rejected anything less than excellent. All of this communicated standards that children could internalize. If you wanted to succeed like Motown artists, you had to work hard, prepare thoroughly, and present your best self to the world. Television brought Motown artists into living rooms in ways that radio could not. Appearances on Ed Sullivan, American Bandstand, and variety shows let families see their favorite artists perform. These television moments were events, families gathering around the set when word spread that the Supremes or the Temptations would be appearing. Children watched how the artists moved, how they dressed, how they handled themselves in front of cameras. Every detail was noted and discussed afterward. The choreography of Motown groups was particularly influential. Those synchronized moves, the Temptations' gliding steps, the Supremes' graceful gestures, became goals for children to achieve. Living rooms and basements became rehearsal spaces where children practiced the routines, sometimes alone and sometimes with friends or siblings. The discipline required to master synchronized choreography taught lessons about teamwork, practice, and the pursuit of perfection. When Motown artists appeared on television, they were always impeccably presented, hairstyled, clothes coordinated, smiles bright. This polished image was deliberate, part of Berry Gordy's strategy for crossover success. But for black children, it also communicated the importance of self-presentation, of putting your best foot forward, of using appearance as a tool for success. success. The Motown look became aspirational, something to aim for in your own presentation. Motown's influence on Black childhood extended to play and imagination. Children pretended to be their favorite Motown artists, staging living room concerts for family members forced to be audiences. Hairbrushes and wooden spoons became microphones. Records played on the family stereo provided backing tracks. 3 girls could be the Supremes. 5 boys could attempt the Temptations. These performances were how children processed their admiration, how they tried on identities, how they dreamed of futures beyond their current circumstances. The fantasy of being a Motown star was particularly powerful because it seemed achievable. These were not classical musicians who had studied for decades or athletes with exceptional physical gifts. They were singers and dancers, people whose talents could be developed by anyone willing to work. A child singing into a hairbrush microphone could imagine growing up to be Diana Ross because Diana Ross had started as a girl in the housing projects of Detroit. The Motown dream was democratic. Anyone with talent and determination might achieve it. Talent shows at schools and community centers provided stages for these dreams. Children performed Motown songs, imitating the choreography and vocal stylings of their idols. Parents watched from audiences, proud and sometimes astonished at what their children could do. These performances were practice runs for careers that might or might not materialize, but they were also valuable in themselves, teaching confidence, poise, and the willingness to put yourself out there. The community that formed around Motown music connected Black people across geography and generation. You could move to a new city and find common ground with strangers by referencing shared favorites. You could bridge generational divides by singing songs that both parents and children knew by heart. Motown was a shared language, a set of references that Black Americans could draw upon to establish connection and communicate meaning. At family reunions and holiday gatherings, Motown music brought everyone together. The older folks might prefer the earlier hits, the songs from the Supremes and Temptations that had defined their youth. The younger generation might gravitate toward the Jackson 5 or Stevie Wonder's more recent work. But everyone knew the words, everyone could dance, and the music became a medium for multi-generational celebration. The church even felt Motown's influence, despite gospel purists who worried about secular music corrupting sacred spaces. Some gospel choirs incorporated the polished production values and sophisticated arrangements of Motown into their sound. Some singers who had grown up on Motown brought its influence to their church performances. The cross-pollination between sacred and secular was controversial, but undeniable. Motown shaped how people heard and made music in every context. By the late 1970s, Motown's dominance was beginning to fade. Disco was rising. Berry Gordy had moved the company from Detroit to Los Angeles. Many of the original stars had left the label or were past their commercial peaks. The sound that had defined an era was giving way to new sounds for new times, but the impact of Motown on those who had grown up with it was permanent and profound. The children who had sung along with Motown Records became adults who carried those songs with them throughout their lives. The songs were played at weddings and funerals, marking life's most important transitions. They appeared on oldies radio stations, triggering instant nostalgia. They were covered by new artists, passed down to new generations, kept alive in cultural memory, even as the original era receded into history. For Black Americans who came of age in the 1960s and 1970s, Motown remained a touchstone, a shared reference point for an entire generation. You could mention a song title and immediately evoke a whole world of associations. Where you were when you first heard it, who you were with, what was happening in your life. Motown songs became markers of personal history, the soundtrack against which memory played. The legacy of Motown extends far beyond nostalgia. The musical innovations, the production techniques, the songwriting formulas, the artist development strategies influenced every genre of popular music that followed. The business model, Black ownership, quality control, crossover appeal, provided templates for Black entrepreneurs in entertainment and beyond. The cultural impact, the images of Black excellence, the proof that Black art could conquer the world, shaped how Black Americans saw themselves and what they believed possible. For those of us who grew up with Motown, the music remains as powerful today as it was decades ago. The songs still move us, still transport us back to childhoods, shaped by their melodies and messages. We hear My Girl, and we are young again, hearing it for the first time, falling in love with the sound that would stay with us forever. We hear I'll Be There, and we remember what it felt like to believe in love and loyalty, and the promises that songs can make. What Motown songs take you back to your childhood? Which artists were your favorites and why? What memories do you associate with particular songs? Share your stories in the comments below. Let us celebrate together the music that shaped us, the sound of Hitsville that became the sound of our lives. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel and ring that bell so you never miss another journey into the beautiful past that made us who we are. This is our story. This is our music. This is Motown, the sound that raised a generation and echoes still in everything we are.